Hi, welcome to RAR Math. Today I'm doing a series of videos on functions, and in this video I want to find the zeros of each function. To find a zero of a function, I want to find when f of x equals 0. So for this first one, I'm going to take 2x squared minus 13x minus 7 and set it equal to 0. Because I have a trinomial and x is in more than one term, I'm going to have to factor. So I'm going to start with my little hat. 2 times negative 7 equals negative 14. I want to find two numbers that multiply to negative 14 and add up to negative 13. I always start with the 1 and 14 to figure out my signs. Because 14 is negative, one has to be positive, the other negative. Because I'm adding up to a negative, the bigger factor needs to be negative. As it goes, that's as far as I need to go. 1 minus 14 happens to be negative 13. What I just did was I found two numbers to replace this middle term. The whole point of this was to find a way to turn a three-term polynomial, a trinomial, into a four-term polynomial, because a four-term polynomial is simpler to factor. So this becomes 2x squared plus x minus 14x minus 7 equals 0. So 3 terms to 4 terms. When you have 4 terms, you can factor 2 at a time with the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor that can come out of these two terms is x, and I'm going to bring this negative down. The greatest common factor that can come out of these two terms is 7. When I pull out an x, now be really careful. Division cannot eliminate a term. So when I pull out this x, I'm going to get 2x plus 1, not just 2x. Don't eliminate the term. It's only subtraction or addition can do that. When I pull out, I needed that negative to come down. That's what the arrow is for. When I factor out that negative 7, negative 14 divided by negative 7 is a 2. And negative 7 divided by negative 7 is a plus 1. You find your prime right here. If this works, this works. What's in the parentheses have to be the same. 2x plus 1. What's out of the parentheses? X minus 7. When two numbers multiply to be 0, one of them has to be 0. It's a rule. So either 2x plus 1 is 0, which happens when 2x is a negative 1, or x is a negative 1/2, or x minus 7 is 0, which happens when x is a positive 7. This squared told us that we should look for two answers, and we got two answers. Over here, this cube tells us we're looking for three answers. Well, we already have 4 terms, which means we want to factor with grouping. We'll group the first 2 terms and the second and bring this negative down. In the first 2 terms, I can factor out a 4x squared. In the second 2 terms, all I can pull out is a negative 1. That's the only thing common. If I pull out a 4x squared, I'm left with x minus 6. If I pull out a negative 1, that's going to change my signs. I have an x minus 6. I wasn't guaranteed this was going to work. I didn't have this step to guarantee it. But when I look, what's in the parentheses is the same. So I have what's in the parentheses and what is out of the parentheses. From here, there are 2 ways of solving this. The first way is I can continue to factor. X minus 6, this is a difference of 2 squares. 2x plus 1, 2x minus 1. Now, this 3 means I'm looking for 3 sets of parentheses. I have 3 sets of parentheses. I can now set them each equal to 0. X minus 6 equals 0 when x equals 6. 2x plus 1 equals 0 when 2x is a negative 1 or x is a negative 1/2. 2x minus 1 equals 0 when a 2x is 1 or x is a 1/2. And yay, done. Woohoo! That is a really good way of doing it. Getting used to seeing a difference of two squares and factoring that, it's brilliant, because this is something that students often miss when they're factoring as a secondary factor. That said, I could have at this point, because there's only one x in each parenthesis, I could have said x minus 6 equals 0, or 4x squared minus 1 equals 0. I still would have gotten this. Over here, I would have said 4x squared equals 1, divide by 4, so that x squared equals 1/4. And then I would have square rooted with a plus or minus. You have to remember that when you introduce a square root, you also have to introduce that plus or minus. If you introduce that plus or minus, then you get x is equal to -1/2 or +1/2. And by doing that, you get these last two answers that we had from before. So this is one way, this is the other way. They both work equally well. It is dealer's choice. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.